show me who you are and fill me with your heart and meaning. Give your love to those around me. Come, Holy Spirit. Fill us all tonight to listen. For me to speak your words, Lord, so that every one of us are moved by what you have for us tonight. And we leave here different people than how we entered. We pray this in your holy name. Amen. You guys sing well. Makes it easy on my part. All right. So I'm 62, which means I lived a long life so
You're
far.
60.
I know I'm an old geez, aren't I? I'm 62 twice, because last year, Penny had to correct me. I was telling her on my birthday last year. I said, wow, I don't feel like it, and I know I'm really not that old, but I can't believe I'm 62 today. And she's just looking at me with a smile on her face. And I says, can you believe it? I'm 62. She goes, you're not 62. Yeah, I'm 62. Do the math. She goes, you do the math. I did the math. I'm only 61! Whoa!
And I tell you, my mom always did that. Whenever she turned whatever it was, she added the years. She said, then I'll be used to it.
Yeah.
So she was always catching up with herself.
Yeah, well, mine was out of pure ignorance. It gave me a year, but this year I couldn't slick out of it, so.
I was gonna say, did you convince the Social Security Department?
Yeah, that's my next step, I guess. So, it's a lot of years. I won't go through the whole thing, but I'll start it. When I was 6.5 months old. Oh Lord, no. I'll start from youth to teenager. And I will say, for me, I have always been aware of the Lord's presence. Not that I've always connected with it or paid real good attention to it, especially in my youth. But often I did. And as I look back as an adult, especially preparing this, I realized just how much that presence was with me and how often the Lord was poking me, whether I listened or not. But I also realized the times when he poked and I did respond, and as a young man growing up, being one of the few kids that openly talked about God, you got teased a lot, and so that's probably why a lot of times I didn't listen. But to make that happen, I had to have people in my life to help me be aware of Christ's presence, and first and foremost would be my grandparents, because man, they were, every time you go to their house, they just beaded rosaries nonstop, and I find I got 2 left that my grandfather made, so they're nice heirlooms to Penny and I, and they just constantly did rosaries and gave them out, and they were very proud of it, and they never really openly practiced their personal faith. That that was a pre-Vatican II church at the time, and they were who they were. But you knew they were a faithful person. And they also taught Sunday school to Down syndrome children. And they used to take us to Bablo a lot. We'd go with those kids, and it would freak all of us out, But you couldn't help but look at Grandma and Grandpa interacting with those kids, holding them on their lap, and so you knew there was something special about them. And then my dad, him and I would talk about faith a lot. He was an alcoholic, so one of our favorite things to do as kids is find Dad, and he'll go out, get about 3 beers, drive around, and you get chocolate milk or whatever you want. But we all fought for that spot, because that's when you talked with Dad. So when we played in sports, we loved him coming to our games. He came to everything, but on the way home, he'd get some beers, we'd get what we want, and then we talk about the game, what you could have done better, what you did do well. So it's just a really great dialogue. Something I yearned to do with my grandkids and never got to do, to that extent. But it's a memory of mine. But he must have had a devotion to Mary, because I was an adult at this time, and I was trying to figure something out. I don't know if it was homework or whatever, and he was working down in the basement when we were in Sterling Heights, so we're no longer in Detroit. And I sat on the stairs, and I said, Dad, man, I'm having trouble. Maybe you can help me out. And I expressed what it was, and he said, well, that is tough. I goes, well, I'll tell you what I do. Anytime that I can't figure something out, I pray a Hail Mary. And I'm telling you, Tom, every time to figure it out. And he was right on, and I still practice that today. And that's what I do. And if I also think of Dad and say, you pray one for me too for extra help, you know. So then there was my mom, who was probably my example of Mary, because she was a very warm, she still is a very warm and loving woman. And though she had a very difficult time being married to an alcoholic, there was great love between my parents, and that was obvious to all of us. I was a middle child, so I observed. So I could see the pain Mom was in many times, and I could see where she could be felt cut short. But she always reached out to me because she knew she could, right? So I was a child that she knew she could touch in public and open. So I loved it when we were at Mass, I would try to get next to her. Or if we had to be in separate pews, I would try and get in front of her. Because always when I was sitting or she was kneeling or something, she'd be touching me, you know, and she'd rub my shoulders or something. Or always at one of the songs, she would touch me and rub my shoulders. And I likened that to the Blessed Mother. And I don't know how I did, but I just did. And so that led me into a devotion at a very young age to the Blessed Mother. And my earliest memory of that is my grandparents' backyard. They had a statue of the Blessed Mother in their rose garden. And my mom still has that statue. And I would stare at it. I would look at it all the time. And I can remember I had this dream. I was in 4th grade. And I had this dream, and I'm in that backyard, and my grandparents had large stairs going up from their backyard, and I was working my way up, and I was looking at the statue, and then suddenly it came to life. And then in the dream, the statue became a full person, still dressed in the garments of the Blessed Mother, and I knew exactly who it was, even though I couldn't see her face. I could only see shoulders down, but I knew exactly who it was, and she came up to me and embraced me. And in that embrace, I felt my maternal mother's embrace. So I understood that the Blessed Mother was my mother. And so that's where that really got started. So at a very young age I had that. And I remember after that I went to Guardian Angels, and the convent across the street where the nuns obviously lived for school, they had this big statue of the Blessed Mother, and I don't even know which statue it represented as far as her. But I went back and I drew it, and I'm not an artist, I don't draw, and I drew that thing perfectly. I got permission every lunch hour, and I'd go lay on my stomach, and I would draw this thing. And I got everything just right, but I couldn't get her eyes. And so you had this beautiful pencil drawing, and I knew it was beautiful, but all these smudged eyes, so I didn't keep it.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I could never get the eyes, and I don't know why I couldn't get the eyes. But that all came to me later in my adult life. Which I'll say in a little bit, but it came to me when I was married to Sandy. We started distributing a travel picture of Our Lady of Medjugorje. And if you would do that for a year, you take it to someone's house and they keep it for a week and they worship, and then you get it back, then you get to keep that picture, and that's what we did. And there was one day in great despairs of that marriage, I was just sitting in front of that picture crying, and then I looked at her eyes and I realized I got those eyes. That's how her eyes came to me. So I feel that she didn't give them to me then, because now as an adult I knew what they meant, and then I knew how real it was. And it took me even deeper into relationship with her. But back to being a kid, my other persons were the Fabian family. And I was the paper boy, as both Cynthia and Jack have told you. And I really didn't know Cynthia that well. I think I've talked to you that I remember one time your mom brought me into your house. You and your sister were sitting I still remember your kitchen table. It was like a big booth at a restaurant. And I don't know why I was in there, but she invited me in, and that's when I remember talking to you. And I only saw Jack once, and he came over and played football with us kids. And that's all my memory was.
What's the age difference? I mean, I'm 78.
62 to 70 to 80.
Just
So 18 for him and Father Jack.
So
16.
yeah, so he came over and played football with us. We thought it was cool that a priest came over and played football. And then, but how I knew of you was from my mom, how she talked of you, of Jack, and of your family. So prior to becoming this paper boy, I had a great affinity for all of you. And really kind of a love for you, a spiritual love anyway, before I even met anybody.
We used to visit your grandma.
Yeah, but I was real little, so I
Right,
wouldn't
but I mean,
remember.
that's probably why your mom.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I remember your grandma more than I remember your mother,
Yeah.
frankly.
Okay, yeah. So I never knew my grandmother. I mean, I was alive, but I was real little, so
Yeah.
I don't have a memory of her. But your mom, she somehow latched on to me. So
She
I
loved you.
did she?
Yeah.
All right. Well, she must have, because she talked to me. I always timed. It was a paper out for the Detroit Free Press. So on Saturdays, I had to go collect the money. Okay. And so I'd always save your house for last, or at least when I knew I had a lot of time. So hoping that I would meet Mrs. Fabian, and then she would talk with me, and she would talk to me about spiritual stuff and about God, and she probably talked to me because she knew I would listen. But she started, in my memory, teaching me about who I was in God, and I formed an identity that way, that I had this, and so it was very, very powerful for me. And also seeing your mom and dad in the mornings in the Free Press, I was up at 4 and delivering at 5 a.m. So I'd see your parents go or coming back from church almost every
Right.
day. So that made me realize, wow, there's something special about these people that they would want to go to Mass. It means there's something special about that Mass too. And so that was kind of my youth and all that taking. And that moves me into a teenager. So, in high school, I had some friends, and we got hooked up into a program called Search for Christian Maturity, which was a youth program designed by Priscilla, I believe. If it wasn't designed by them, it was designed similar to it. And that was my youth group. There were no youth groups back then, in the 60s and early 70s. And it was, it brought us into trying to understand a personal relationship with Christ. And so, we had to run groups, we had to facilitate groups. I got all this kind of cool training at a very young age and never even knew how I was going to be able to use it in my adult life. And it gave me gifts to be able to communicate with people, to be able to listen, okay? And to be able to walk with people spiritually. And so it built a strong faith foundation in me. But I never understood that it was building a personal relationship with Christ until I was well in my adulthood. And our music group was doing praise gatherings at the time, and my folks came up for it, and I was sharing the story of the Search community and how my parents really didn't like me in it, at least seemingly, because the end day of the retreat, you're all kind of tired, you're up all day, up all night, so they have this service where you've gotten love letters from your parents, and so you're all gushy. So, and then you go into the church, and then there's your parents and your family. So we all go out crying and bawling, and it freaked our parents out. Eventually, they stopped doing that because it freaked so many parents out. And, but I'm glad I didn't miss that, even though it caused anxiety because my mom said, "You're in a cult," and she would talk to me. And I actually, after the retreat was over, I didn't like going home. Because then that camaraderie I had, that one-on-one with the adults that were there and with the other youth, I never experienced it before. And I knew I was leaving that and going down back into normal life, and this wasn't going to come with me, basically. And, but as I said at that gathering, they never told me no. They never said, "No, you can't do it." Because I would have been obedient to them, struggled with it, but I'd have been obedient.
How old were you?
I was in high school, so junior year probably, sophomore, junior
Where'd you
year.
go to high school?
Denby, right next door. And so those, some of those guys stayed my friends through most of my adult life. And so that all grounded me, kept me grounded in college. Most of the time in college I went to Mass, but then just kind of slowly faded away. And then that got me into my marriage. Wasn't faded away from church yet with my first wife, Sandy. And Cynthia and Gordy will remember her, and maybe some of the others, because you guys mentored us in the CCL. And so that was, God, was that a trying time. Sandy's an alcoholic, and she's a drug addict. And it was hard. I don't know what else to say. You know, when you're on this end of the alcoholism, when you're on this end of the drug addiction, and you're the one spinning your wheels trying to make it work, it just sucks the life out of you. And it did. And that's kind of what started pulling me away from church. And so, late 80s, early 90s, we got married in 83. So by early 90s, I started getting this pull that, Lord, I want to start praying more, but I don't know how. I said, you got to show me how. And so he started nudging me to go back to church, and I would go by myself. And I wouldn't want to go back home because what I had to face all the time. So I'd stay in the parking lot, and St. John's up in Fenton, there's like 3,300 families, so it'd take 45 minutes for the parking lot to empty out. So I'd stay in the parking lot, roll the windows down, and just read the bulletin, you know. And on the back of the bulletin, there's this little clip of a Catholic charismatic prayer group. And I thought, that's my answer. I said, that's what you want me to do, right, Lord? I said, but I don't think I'm ready, so you're going to have to let me know when I'm ready. And I did. That's just how I did it. I didn't go, and I didn't go. I thought, man, I think I'm getting closer. I think I'm getting closer. And all this time I'm dialoguing with the Lord like we're best friends. And I didn't really understand that I was doing that. And that's how the Lord has worked in me. He has built in me charisms and ways of doing things that can come natural to me, and I don't even know it. And so there I was practicing it. So I'm picking up odd jobs. I'm out of college now. Don't know what I want to do with myself, so I'm just taking odd jobs. And I was selling cars at the time. Worst job of my life. And but I met this guy, Skip Clark, and we just were good friends. We would talk about God all the time. He was the only guy in the dealership that you could talk God about. And it turns out he's part of this prayer group. And he tells me one, and I said, hey, you want to go to dinner tomorrow night? He goes, I can't. I got a prayer meeting tomorrow, and so I can't. I says, oh yeah? Where do you go? He goes, oh, I go to St. John's. Is that the prayer meeting that's Saturday? He goes, yeah, I want to come.
Oh
Can I come?
gosh.
Can I come? He goes, well, Tom, we kind of do things a little bit different. It's a charismatic group, and if you're not, I'd rather talk to you about it first. And I said, Skip, look, I'm ready to go. I want to go. So if I promise you right here, right now, if there's anything that I don't get, I won't go crazy on you. All right? I won't stalk out of there. I'll stay in there, and I'll talk to you after. And then you can explain it to me. He says, you promise? I says, I promise. So I go in. I was all excited because my spirit understood I was embarking on something that changed me forever. You know, it began the process of who I am as an adult. And it was the first time I heard a word of knowledge, a prophetic word. And his wife, Alice, was in front of me, and she gives out this very poetic word. I don't even know what it was, but all I know is I was crying. And I don't even know, I couldn't understand her words. I was just crying from the tonality that was coming from her. So I asked her after, I said, do you have a copy of that poem you read? She said, what poem? You read a poem, and she goes, oh no, that was from the Lord. That was a prophetic word. And that's when I knew I was locked. I said, if I could be a part of something like that, nothing could be better. You know, if I could lock in with God like this, then you got life. And so that was my journey. And I started in, and in the whole time I got all this mess with Sandy. And so I start going to the meetings. I come home, I went to 4 of them. And I'm getting ready to go the 5th week. Sandy's getting her coat on. I said, are you going out with your friend? She goes, oh no, I'm going with you. I says, you are? How come? She said, oh, I see the changes in you, and I want some of that for myself.
Whoa.
And I wouldn't have known that. So that's how she started getting involved. And kind of helped her go sober for about 5 years, but that was it. So I get into this charismatic prayer group, and all I can tell you is I fell in love with the music. And there was an accordion player and guitar players, and you would think would be the oddest couple right there. And but the music, when you can pray by singing. For me, gosh, when you feel the words of a song, you feel the understanding of the song, and you place your heart into that song, and then you lift that up in prayer. That's what our hymns in church are all about. That's what these songs that we play are about. And
Not John Denver.
oh, I loved him too.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
Well, you know, God walked the country. Jesus walked the
Okay,
countryside.
all right.
That's probably what he's saying. And Grandma's feather bed. St. Anne's feather bed. Anyhow, I start moving into it, and I wasn't one to raise my hands or anything. In fact, I would break out in a sweat. I was already bald by then, and I felt like I had these big globules of sweat all over my head, and my palms would get really sweaty. So the whole time I got my hands like this, all right? And you know, there's only a couple men in there. All the women were raising their hands, and out of the 4 men, 3 of us weren't, but one was. And he was like that. I thought, I want to be like that. Lord, I pray you give me the courage to be like that. So you see how that song's important, build my life. I want the courage because I knew it would take courage. I related myself to the cowardly lion in The Wizard of Oz. I truly, truly did. Because I always seemed to be fearful. And here I was, kind of embarrassed for the fact that I was afraid to raise my hands because of how I would look. And, you know, so eventually the hands came a little higher. And I can remember the day I broke free and the hands went up. I thought, oh, this is so cool. I was still sweating, you know, but I eventually got through it. And so I started. I grew up playing trombone, so music was in my family. My mom played piano and organ, and Grandpa played the trumpet, so there was always music when they were over together and singing. And so the love of music started welling up in my heart. And I thought, man, I want to get back in music. And I would love to learn to play guitar, and I'd love to learn to play piano. And Lord, can you help me do that? And it just, I wouldn't move from that point. That's what I would pray. And then my first, had to be like 92, 93, my first year in it was in October. And the Toledo Diocese has a charismatic conference, and it's called the Holy Toledo Catholic Charismatic Conference. And it was at the Seagate Center, kind of like a smaller Cobo Hall. And we go there, and it was my first one. And I just went on a Saturday, so it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and our group just went Saturday, because that was the day of the healing service. So we're rolling in at 7 a.m. and we stayed there till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And the first thing that blew me away was the music. They had a very large music group. And when they sang in tongues, they just sang and they sang. And I never heard it outside of our little prayer group. And I turned to Sandy, she was with me, and I said, you know, if I could learn to play like that, I said, that would just be everything. I says, and to be able to be up on a stage like that, leading people in it, I says, it wouldn't even really matter if I did it, but to be able to have the knowledge and the ability to it, oh, that would be awesome. And it was before I ever picked up a guitar. So that's what the Lord was instilling in me. And I still remember that day, obviously, because I'm sharing it, of how profound the music was. And then Father DeGrandis was the speaker. I believe he's deceased now. But at the time, he was like the healing priest. And so we go there. I can still remember, I walked in the Seagate. There was an entrance facing this way, an entrance facing this way. And I'm walking in here, and as I'm holding the door for everybody, my eyes lock in on this very old elderly woman. And she's hunched over, and she's got one of those canes with 4 feet on it. And this is full speed ahead, just like my mom now. Okay, full speed ahead. And I saw her, and I thought, wow, I can't believe she's here. That's pretty neat. And then every break, I'd see her. When we went to lunch, we were at the same place she was at. So I saw her at every chance I could. But throughout the day, now I've learned to pray in tongues. I've come to understand about being slain in the Spirit. And I desired to learn how to pray over people. And all this, I'm going through lessons. They're teaching me how to do this. That was the beauty of it. All these desires of my heart that were burning desires are coming to life. And I'm starting to get comfortable with it. And kind of like you said 2 weeks ago, you know, you're you got good at something, you know, and you knew you were in your right place. And I knew I was in my right place. I thought, wow, I'm praying over people. I'm starting to understand these gifts of prophecy and gifts of a prophetic word. And I'm exercising them, and I'm around adult people who are living their faith in their. Every single person in that room, which was at that time probably 20 to 30, volunteered somewhere in the church. So they were living their faith, and I was amongst it, and I knew I was learning. So I was in a great place for me. And so I kind of so we go through the spiritual gifts at this conference. And Father DeGrandis, throughout the day, he's taking us through, if you have the gift of healing, you're going to feel a warmth in your hand. And I look at my wife, yeah, right. And I can feel warmth in my hand right now if I pay attention. and then suddenly my hands are burning. He goes, now if anybody feels it, I want you to come up, stand up and come up. I stood up, but I didn't run up. But there was always this young man who had long, golden, beautiful hair. I couldn't have been jealous. But he was one of those guys that hopped up. Oh, it was me. Oh, it was me. And he'd run up to the stage. It was me. It was me. I said, you creep, sit down. You know, that's what I wanted to say to him. I said, oh my God, what a loser. You know, he needed that attention. And then suddenly, as these gifts were coming out, we had other gifts. So if you're having a healing in your knee, if the pain's out of your knee and pain's out of your neck, I want you to stand up. And both were clear on me because both were killing me. And, oh crap! Now I got to stand up again. Now I'm going to be just like him because I'm standing up 2 or 3 times. And then along with all these others, I saw all these people who, in my mind, this is what I'm saying. Oh my God, they probably haven't washed in a month. Oh my God, look how dirty they are. Look how nasty they are. I'm just around with all the scum of Toledo. This is running in through my mind, through all of this beautiful stuff happening. So there's this battle going on, which I wasn't aware of. And I was losing it very quickly. And my neck was healed. My knee was healed. And I had to admit my neck because all day long in the morning I was rubbing this. And we had some elderly ladies behind us. They were a blast. And the woman behind me, I heard her whisper to her friend, that young man had his neck healed. And I thought, crap, now I got to admit it, you know? So I had to stand up, you know? And there comes those sweat globules again. And so I went through like 5 or 6 healings that day. And each time, then I finally just stopped standing up. Because it wasn't going to be like those people, all right? And so we go through all these gifts. And the ladies behind me, we were learning about the gift of tongues. And I was just kind of coming in new to it. So the priest said, I just want you to write down what comes to your mind. Lord, I want you to put on everybody's mind a word. And this was earlier in the day. And we had to turn around and share. She goes, I don't know what he told me, but it's sha-na-na-na-na. And I thought, oh, I wouldn't have written that down. You know, the Lord would tell you something profound, you know. And I thought, but then I realized, wow, what faith she had. That I don't, you know. She wrote it down. Sha-na-na-na-na. She trusted so beautifully. Lord, I want to be like that. I want to be that devout to you and that responsive to you. And it's the churning of my heart. So later in the day, we're talking about the words, about speaking in tongues. And he says, one of the best ways to start speaking in tongues is just start going sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Holy criminy. I just about melted right there. I just turned around to the lady. She goes, see, I told you. You know, yeah, you sure did. And I'm listening now, you know. So the day goes on. Now we come to the healing service at night. And he has a lay couple up there healing with him. I said, well, this is going to be fake. Lay people can't heal, only priests can. Okay? And I said, oh, this is going to be stupid. And so he picked 5 people out of the audience. I don't know how you're going to see all that. There's thousands of people here and got all these lights. How did he pick 5 people? It's fixed. I know it's fixed. Someone would go up and I got this healing in my arm. They'd pray over him and then he would yank him up. How's your arm? How's your arm? Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, bull crap. You know? And then how's your leg? Oh, it's wonderful. And how's your back? Oh, it's wonderful. And now I'm just upset. I know that at lunchtime he met these people. This is all figured out and planned. Okay? So he gets to the fifth person. Where's my fifth person? Come on up, come on up. And we're all looking, and it's that little old lady. I said, aha, ha, 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 ha. I know, but she's like, I've seen her all day long, and he didn't talk with her, so we're gonna find out it ain't gonna work. About ready to cry. He sits her down, and he prays over her. He goes, how you feeling? She goes, I feel pretty good. He goes, oh yeah, let's prove it. And he takes her cane and he whips it off the stage.
Oh.
And she pops up out of her seat. He grabs her hand, and they run up and down every aisle in that place.
Wow.
I'm just bawling. I'm bawling. I thought, why can't I have that faith? This isn't really that important. So that's how the Lord worked with me. He just took that 2x4 and pounded it all day long, and I fought back all day long. Even after that, now we're going to lay hands on everybody. I want everybody to line up along the perimeter, and the priest and that lay couple who's going to pray together are going to, yeah, right, I ain't going down. So I went up just to prove that. I wasn't going to go, and finally Sandy looked at me, and in her wisdom, she says, look, you've been here all day. You came down for this. Just come on up. All right, I'll go. Just because I didn't want to be the only fool sitting in the seat where everyone else is up. So I'm facing this wall. And he's like 30 people from me, and I can hardly stand up. And I'm wobbling. I'm wobbling like this. This is okay. I must just be dizzy. So finally, I'm leaning. I'm doing this on the wall. I'm leaning on the wall. Holy gosh. Oh, I must be hot. He comes up to me, because I'm watching, he's coming up to people, he goes, boot down, boot down. Oh, that's bull crap. You at least gotta pray over him, you know. He comes up to me, puts his hand on my forehead, boom, down. I couldn't get back up. I was conscious and everything. I thought, oh crap, I can't move now. Well, maybe this is for real. And I just laid there. And nothing really went through my mind except that I